So it's not the constitution that is a problem per se, but those that are supposed to interpret it and then administer it.
See, what we're saying is that people should be passionate about their job. We should have people that love this country. People say, you know what, we don't want deregulation of petroleum products. We want the subsidy to continue. We want our refineries to be prepared. But you go talk to somebody who runs or works in one of these refineries, they will tell you why those refineries can never work.
There is a present and real danger for the corporate existence of Nigeria. Generally, this government is considered as weak.
It should not be so. If we remain like that, then we will remain in socio-economic and political thraldom.
So when you talk about passion, the people ruling us, they are not passionate.
Well, let's take
the House of Rep is not passionate. The senators are not passionate. That's why they are discussing without doing anything. Which sacrifice are they going to offer?
In Nigeria, governance is not about servanthood. Governance in Nigeria is about what can I get.
Hello, you're welcome to another thrilling and exciting edition of your favorite program, Agenda. We set the agenda right, we redefine patriotism. That is what we do here, and you're welcome once again. It's been a very informative and entertaining program till this time. Last week we talked about a series of issues. If I introduce myself, my name is Philip Ihaza, and today we're promising you we'll do our best to do something very good on the show today. We're going to be looking at still looking at Nigeria's economy. Last week we looked at the Nigeria's economy, but in the light of increasing debt levels, talking about our debt profile. And then this week we're also going to look at something interesting and pertaining to the Nigerian economy, which is expanding in Nigeria's agricultural base. Yes, I know it's an interesting topic, and I have someone I'm going to be calling my co-host today, but he is my guest, of course. He is a friend, he's one of us, he's a family actually, and his name is Mr. Sotonye Anga. He was at the event that emanated these issues that we're talking about today. Mr. Sotonye Anga, you're welcome.
Thank you, Philip. Nice to be with you again.
It's always warm to have you in the studios. All right. He is the MD CEO of Darcom Agricultural Investment Company, agri-business consultant, and social commentator. Now, what brought these issues to the fore? There was the Nigerian Stock Exchange organized an investment dinner, okay, for the agricultural sector. The Minister of Agriculture, Ayo Adesina, who was at the event, he was a keynote speaker, and he was there. He gave this wonderful presentation that we're going to be showing to you very soon. And fortunately, Mr. Anga, you were also at the event,
yes.
Right? It was talking about agriculture. Can you give us a little of what you took home from that program, from the dinner?
Basically, that whole program was about expanding the agricultural market space for Nigerian agribusiness people. It was centered on unlocking the agricultural sector.
Okay.
Getting financing, which is very, very key to the development of the agricultural sector in
Especially
Nigeria.
to the grassroots.
Absolutely,
farmers.
to the grassroots. Okay. And during that forum, the core issues were bringing agricultural companies, Nigerian agricultural companies, into the stock exchange.
Okay.
And that was very, very important because we need to access fund. And of course, in the stock exchange, you have so much of money
Flying
just there,
there.
flying, so we need to access them. And the right people to access this money is agribusiness people, Nigerian agribusiness people. So we need to arise and take advantage of that privilege and opportunity. It's a great opening.
Yes, a great opening. And prior to this time, funds have actually been approved by the government. But the point is, how does it get to the farmers? Many of the farmers complain that they hardly get these facilities, especially credit facilities or even those funds for their goods. So did he actually talk about those issues, how those funds are going to be disseminated to the farmers directly for them to make use of? Did he talk about that during
the big problem we've always had when it comes to funding, you see, once money is allocated for agricultural issues, for instance, if the moment you say there is 100 billion naira available for the improvement and development of the agricultural sector,
yeah.
that moment you get a lot of people suddenly interested in agriculture.
In agriculture.
And
Okay.
they tell you, look, we're farmers, we're
Yes.
into this agribusiness, we're into that agribusiness. All they are interested in is in the money.
Some money.
So they come with all forms of fictitious names just to assess the fund. So you realize that always a repeated, exercise, always. The right people these funds are meant for don't assess the fund. Now, if the right people don't assess the fund, I'm talking about people that are passionate about agriculture, people that are passionate about agribusiness, people that are really core farmers, core agribusiness people. If they don't assess funding, they will not be able to put their ideas, their agribusiness ideas to work. So if they don't put it to work, there will be no meaningful development in the agricultural sector. Farming, agribusiness is not cheap. You need a whole lot of money. Okay, it's capital intensive. That is why the youth of today, they are not interested in farming.
Exactly.
Because nobody wants to go and take hoe and dig and go to the farm and do that manual labor.
And wait a long while to get the return.
So if agriculture is going to really be productive and effective, we need to change the way we're doing things. So the fund have to go to the right people.
Okay.
And that is very, very important.
Okay. Well, that's not the first phase of this clip we're going to be showing to you very soon. We're actually looking at fertilizers, the first point today. So actually, you might need your pen and your paper to put some points down, especially if you're interested in agriculture or you're interested in the Nigerian economy. So you stay tuned right now. We'll bring you the first clip of that event that occurred recently. So just stay tuned. We'll be back.
It's strictly about the economy. Everything you will hear from me tonight is going to be about the economy. How we, as Nigerians, as investors, can actually grow what is in fact the largest sector of our economy. And how to make that sector to become, in fact, in my view, more dominant, more important in driving jobs in this country, even than oil. Something else has to change. And the approach that we have taken, and my own fundamental belief, is that we must have government-enabled, private sector-led transformation. In other words, government's business is not to be in business. But government business is to structure incentives in such a way that the private sector will do what will enable us to achieve our social and economic objectives. So the engine of growth is the private sector, but it can't be left to a laissez-faire system. It's got to be guided. Look at China, look at Brazil, look at Malaysia, look at Indonesia. Not a single one of those countries left a chance. No, it was actually carefully guided. Incentives provided in key areas of the economy to grow, and that is what we are doing. Now, what's our target? Our target is quite ambitious, and it must be. It's easy to set very low targets, but I'm not one of those people. Because Nigerians have waited for so long, things must change. And it can't change in 10 years, it can't change in 15 years, it can't change in 20 years. In other words, the future of Nigeria can never be always in the future. It has to be now. And so we've got to really do it. And so we've set a target of 20 million metric tons of food into the domestic food supply, and also creating 3.5 million jobs through the value chain over the next couple of years. Let me talk about some things we've stopped doing, because I'll get into a little bit more of a discussion shortly on some things. But we've got to stop doing some things, and we have. First and foremost is that agriculture is not a development project. As I said, it's a business. Whether it's seed, whether it's fertilizer, whether it's storage, whether it's processing, whether it's adding value, whether you're transporting, whatever, it is a business, and therefore we must structure it, and we are doing that as a business. Second is that I've told many people, in fact all of my staff, don't come to me with a project. I'm not interested in series of isolated projects, because they don't hang together. A little bit of a borehole there, a little bit of something there, and so on. No. Everything we do must be harnessed in an integrated way to unlock the capacity and the potential of the sector. And finally, is that no more big government crowding out the private sector. I am not running a populist ministry of agriculture. I am not a politician and I don't want to be one. The easiest thing to do is to give things away. But we must take tough decisions and redirect how we invest in this sector. Now, quickly, we started doing a number of things. And basically, we're treating agriculture as a business. We're taking everything from end to end. It is from the farm right to the fork. We're focusing on value chains in which Nigeria has comparative advantage in the past. Many of you have heard me talk about that at different other fora. So I'm not going to talk about that today, but we have huge comparative advantage in so many commodities. Cocoa, we have it in oil palm, we have it in cotton, we have it in several things. And for me, and for the purpose of this discussion tonight, is this investment-driven strategic partnership with the private sector. It has to be investment-driven. And I am going to be 1,000% for anything that builds that partnership with the private sector, that adds value to what we produce. If you ever tell me that, and I said no, then you can report me to the president. So if you are doing anything to add value to what we are producing in Nigeria, I will give you 1,000%. Now, let us go quickly into some of the things that we've done. Now, fertilizer, as you know, is one thing I have to take on because it has given the sector a bad name. For decades, it's a place in which you sit, you sign off papers and contracts for people, and the fertilizer is bought by government, sold by government. You don't see the fertilizer, but you see the rich people. Fat bank accounts, poor farmers. And so you find a situation where the fertilizer never gets there. Only 11% of that fertilizer actually gets to the farmers. In other words, it's a misuse of government money. And the only reason that that system had continued for decades in this country is because of rent seekers that were making money from it. It's the most corrupt system you could ever think about. Where poor farmers were supposed to be getting inputs are denied, the rich get it, the fertilizer develops hands and legs and walks away all the time, just like that. Very corrupt system. And so, one of the things I had to do from the start, it didn't take me more than 90 days to clean up that entire mess. 90 days was all it took. Because it is a corrupt system that had to end, and we ended it. So I'm happy to say that we ended that corruption in the fertilizer sector due to corruption. And today you have farmers finding fertilizer. You go to Notori, they sell fertilizer. Their trucks are constantly moving. There's nobody in between them and their fertilizer. And we did more than that. We decided that we had to give fertilizers to farmers via a private sector driven system. So what we did was we decided that we must know our customer, just like you all in the private sector must know your customer. So we did a database, a survey of our farmers, and I said we have to reach 20 million farmers with farm inputs by 2015. So which means we've got to do 5 million farmers every year. So we did that survey, we had our database developed, and then we moved into an input supply system, allocation system, using mobile phones. Nigeria has roughly close to 100 million mobile phones. And people may say, oh, in rural areas, folks don't have mobile phones. That's not correct. Because they all call you and ask for money.
Yes. That's right.
So the mobile phones are there. Why not tap into it? So we decided to tap into that, and we developed what is called an electronic wallet. And I'm very happy to say that that system, we are the first in Africa to develop an electronic wallet system. In which farmers are getting their allocations of fertilizers and seed over their own phone. What that means is that There is no local government official between the farmer and the fertilizer. It means that the companies have to sell. I told the companies, you can't sell fertilizer to me. I am not a farmer. The government is not a farmer. Coca-Cola is sold and found in all rural areas. Government doesn't distribute it. By the way, this is not wine, this is Coca-Cola. So why is government distributing fertilizers and seed? And I'm glad that leaders like GT and others that are here in the input supply, they understood what I was saying and they started selling it directly. And what we've done is that we're working so closely this year to reach the farmers. 500,000 metric tons of fertilizers being rolled out. We were able to leverage 30 billion naira of financing from the banks for the companies to be able to buy the seed and the fertilizer and take it to farmers. And for the first time in this country, I'm happy to let you know that we did an entire financing for fertilizers and seed supply for the country without borrowing, using 1 naira of government money, not 1 naira. The whole thing, we leverage it from the banks. We structured a financing facility that worked for us with the banks. So we are doing business differently.
You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is The Agenda, and we've been looking at the Nigeria's economy as it relates to agriculture. We're looking at expanding the Nigeria's agricultural base, and that was the Minister of Agriculture of Nigeria, Mr. Ayo Adesina. He's been talking a lot. He said agriculture is business, and that was a strong point I got. Agriculture is business, and then he has been able to eradicate the politics and corruption in distributing fertilizer to farmers, and I really got that, and it was brilliant because it's eaten into the sector, the agricultural sector, for a long time before he came. He said he had 90 days to do that, and that was a brilliant one. What do you have to say about the state of distributing fertilizer now? Will you concur to what he has said, that look, fertilizers they are readily available to the farmers that need them for production?
With regards to fertilizer, see, fertilizer business is big business in Nigeria because for you to be able to farm any crop, you need fertilizer.
Sure.
Okay, and because of the huge demand for fertilizer, okay, the production of fertilizer locally cannot match the demand. So fertilizer became a scarce commodity. And you know, NAFCON in Rivers State, Port Harcourt, produces fertilizer. But at some point, they could not meet up with the growing local demand. So for a long time, Nigeria had relied on imported fertilizer. So fertilizer had become such a big business. In fact, it's a big cartel. You know, with a lot of strong men, they decide, okay, what volume of fertilizer we're going to import. And the budget will always run into billions.
Billions.
So they share this thing. So they tell you, okay, they've given this company, this farmer, 50,000 bags. Meanwhile, they only give 5 bags. You know, so all those kind of things made the fertilizer distribution system very, very awkward and crooked. So what the minister had just done is a clean-up exercise.
And I think he also monopolized the sector, so it's easy. There's competition, there's all that. Get straight to the farmer, distribute it to them, and then you get paid.
Yes, in fact, that has saved the federal government a whole lot of money. Because now farmers can get their fertilizers direct. So it's a direct business between the farmer and the fertilizer producer. So the middleman is cut off. You buy a fertilizer. So with that, you don't need to give any funny fund to any fertilizer importer. And you see, with a process like that, a system like this being put in place by the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, is not an easy one. A very transparent system. It means that a lot of people that have been benefiting from the crooked system
have to look elsewhere.
So certainly they are going to fight it.
Exactly. Well, we'll stand strongly behind him. He's doing a brilliant work. And we'll take the next phase. He talked about rice. Let's see what we can get out of that discussion. So stay with us. We'll be back.
I have mentioned to you that our target is to be self-sufficient in rice by 2015. Next slide. Now, look at this particular slide. You will see a number of things that will make you worry. First and foremost is this. Look at this spike here. When the global crisis for, we had the global food crisis, and there was a spike in the price. That means that Nigeria, which is the largest importer of rice in the world, our market is open to direct price transmission from the global market. So any shock in that market has direct implication for national food security. And so we cannot continue. The reason is that today we are consuming 5 million metric tons of milled rice, 5 million. By the year 2030, we will be consuming 36 million metric tons of rice, milled rice. Today we are spending roughly maybe $3 billion, close to $3 billion a year. By 2030, we'll be spending $150 billion US just importing rice. And I want to ask you, as all bankers and experts, where do you think that's going to ever come from? That's a bankrupted economy, especially when you can produce it yourself. And so that is why we have taken this very, very seriously. However, one of the major problems you all know about rice is the fact that even though we have Ofada rice, we have Abakaliki rice, we have Ada rice, Adani rice, we have all this kind of rice, the problem has always been the milling. We didn't have the milling capacity. So even though the rice is there, you know, it's broken, it's colored, it smells, it has stones and all that. And so I believe that what was most important for us as a government is to make sure that we put in place the full milling capacity for Nigeria to process at an industrial scale international quality rice. Because you all that are here tonight, when you eat rice, you're looking for quality. You're looking for a good rice to have. And so if we don't do that, we cannot compete in terms of quality. So we started by saying we must put that in place. Now, you all know we announced a number of policy incentives and some fiscal measures with respect to rice. They are working. Since the last 1 year that those policies and fiscal incentives were announced, this is what has happened. 210,000 metric tons of additional rice milling capacity has been put in place. Not by government, but by the private sector. In the last 1 year, post-June, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those was post-June. And many of these are now in place. Why? Because the government decided that Nigeria must feed itself with rice. And we put in place all the measures to say that if you are producing rice domestically here, you will not pay anything in terms of import of your machinery. We'll give you corporate tax rebates of all kinds. And it's working, you can see that. In fact, I wish I had the bags of rice here with me. You must have seen some of it in the newspaper sometimes. I love to hold them because I'm very proud of them. They are proudly Nigerian, and I can tell you they are better than any rice that you can find. So next time you are holding this talk, this dinner, I volunteer to donate as an investment in Nigerian rice. Oscar, that's you can, yeah, and maybe you can list that on the stock exchange. Now, what are we doing in this, and why should you be interested as investors? We are putting in place 100 large-scale integrated rice mills. 100. Those 100 large-scale integrated rice mills will allow us to process 2.1 million metric tons of milled rice, which is the total amount we're currently importing at industrial scale, as long as we ramp up the production, and we are. And so, what we are well ahead of our time. You know, that's what I promised, that we will do that by 2015. As I'm talking to you now, we are 210,000 metric tons. I went to China and we had great discussions with the China Exim Bank. We were able to leverage financing at very low concessionary rates, 2% interest rate, 20-year tenor, 7-year moratorium. That's fantastic money, right? We leveraged $1.2 billion outside the budget. You know, people can complain about money in budget. Government budget is government budget. But when you're dealing with business, you must look for other instruments. When you're working with private sector to do that. The reason that we did this is simple. So that private sector can own these things. Not government. Not a single mill is going to be run by any government. Or private sector. And so we are concluding this well ahead of time. And we are ready. We're signing this next month with the Chinese, and all these mills are going to be coming in. This is 30 will come in first, and then 40, and then 30. And by 2015, for the first time in Nigeria's history, we will have the full milling capacity for industrial scale milling of international quality grade rice. Long grain, parboiled, fantastic rice. Thank you. Now, but we're doing it with private sector, guys. I was able to attract to this country a gentleman here, Calvin Burgess. Calvin Burgess is the largest producer of rice in Kenya. And Calvin Burgess, myself and the governor of Taraba State, and President Obasanjo played a huge role also in facilitating this for us with Taraba State government. He is investing in 30,000 hectares of rice land. And I think Notori is also going to be doing some of the supply of fertilizer. 30,000 hectares. And it's going to be the largest rice farm in Nigeria and actually in Africa. They have started work. We have sent 50 young people out of Taraba to Kenya for training. They have finished the training. They came back 2 weeks ago, since February, to learn commercial rice farming. They are all going to be young commercial farmers in Taraba State. And their mills have been ordered, and the initial planting starts December 2012. Now that's huge. He's investing $40 million in that. And I'm pleased to say that a local investor has partnered with him in that, which gives me huge amount of satisfaction as a Nigerian. Now the next one is one that also shows you some of the opportunities and why government has to work and is working differently. Here, this bill, I don't know how many of you have been to the Omo rice mill. You know where it is. Okay. Actually, you should be happy that you haven't been there. The reason is that if you've been there, you will actually not be happy at all, because it's a mill that is a first-rate mill, Satake mill from Japan. Built 10 years ago, has worked 10 hours in 10 years. 1 hour per year. And the reason was because when this was built, it was built by government. There was no road going there, so somebody put a bit of scrap metal in space. No road there. The lower Anambra irrigation basin had 5,000 hectares of land. They did not even give it to anybody who wasn't working. There was no power. So what I just want to say is that I led a team of ministers and I said, no, not on our watch. This is a very expensive asset. And I'm happy to inform you that actually a Nigerian bought this. I think this is the mill bought by Chris Okeke. Yeah. And we are worked now, we put in 3.2 billion naira around this facility. 14 kilometers of road being done by FEMA, asphalted road. We're putting in the land, the entire 3,800 facility transferred to private sector to optimize around it. We are also getting 33 kV line power into that, and that is what we must have. When we say private sector should invest, the job of private sector is not to provide public goods. is to put in the investment. The role of government is to make sure the power, the water, the roads are there. Those are not things you are supposed to do at all. And this is what this particular case study does.
Wow, I was actually caught up there with lots of information, brilliant information coming in this, the agricultural sector. But the truth is, Mr. Anga, lots of Nigerians are used to stories, you know, they call it manifesto, especially when it's in politics. Can you practicalize it? Can you give us a little more pragmatic expression of all that he has been saying? What is on ground? Because I know you've worked closely with the Minister of Agric. What do you think is on ground? You know, I know you're also the MD, CEO of Universal Quest, so you give us a little highlight of how it relates to this that he's talking about.
Rice is big business because I ate rice this morning.
Everyone eats rice. Everyone.
The consumption, the demand for rice by Nigerians is huge. So every engagement, every agribusiness engagement in rice production, in rice import is big. So what the minister is saying is, look, because we consume so much rice every day, and in terms of import, we import so much that is affecting our foreign reserve.
Yeah, he said in 2030 we would have started importing $150 billion.
And that is a whole
That's
lot.
huge.
It
runs
can
in
bankrupt
trillions
our
of naira.
economy. It can bankrupt. You see, you don't need anybody to come and tell you what it's going to be like if we don't change how we do things. So it's a step in the right direction. What the minister is doing is absolutely in line, encouraging local production, local farming of rice. That's one. And then it's not just enough to farm. In Abakaliki, if you go to Abakaliki before this time, they farm rice.
Yeah, I served there. I saw it.
You saw it.
Yes.
But you can't eat the rice because it's
The milling
filled up with
is
so
a
much
problem.
stone.
Yes.
When you go to
Stones
the
and
market,
chaff.
you see foreign rice and you see Nigerian, you avoid the Nigerian.
You're discouraged.
You're
Exactly.
discouraged because you eat it, you can lose one or two
Of your
teeth.
teeth.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about. That's what the minister is saying.
Okay.
It's not just enough to farm rice. You need quality output. You need to process it. High quality. You need to process high quality to get Nigerians whose taste bud is already adjusted to eating premium quality
You know,
rice.
exactly.
So when you produce premium quality, the acceptability will be there. So that is what the minister has just done. He said Dominion Farms, he had attracted them from Kenya to come into Nigeria.
And I thought the president was retired. I saw that's retired President Obasanjo.
Yeah.
I saw him right in the farm.
Absolutely.
I was actually surprised.
He's a farmer by nature.
By nature.
So he's always happy when he's found in that agricultural landscape, that terrain. That's where he belongs. That's his primary constituency. So he gets younger and livelier whenever the opportunity calls on him. So what the minister has done is a step in the right direction. But you see, all of these things are in the making. Okay, I believe that in the next couple of months, we'll be able to see a whole lot of result. Like the people that were sent, Nigerians, the young farmers, that were sent from Taraba State to Kenya for training. They just returned 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
So
a lot of youths will be wondering why were they not among the 50
Absolutely.
now?
So by the time these 50 guys that were sent out, these young farmers come in, they begin to practice what they've learned. They begin to explore, they begin to grow rice, they begin to farm. You know, we'll see a whole lot of excitement, a whole lot of transformation in that sector. Now, we need more rice mills. That's what the minister is saying. That about 100 rice mills will be established in Nigeria.
And he says if you're a farmer, you can receive assistance from the government to import them, the machines, the equipment, everything you need.
Absolutely.
Wow.
You know, so huge funds have been assessed. The interesting thing about the fund that have been assessed is that, okay, the interest rate is just 2%.
According to him, yes.
With a 7-year moratorium.
Compared to other loans where you pay 25%.
In Nigeria
presently.
today, to get any facility, you'll be paying 25% and above.
That's huge.
Agribusiness cannot be sustainable at that level of interest.
Exactly.
Tell me, what agripreneur can survive if he goes to borrow money and is paying an interest rate of 25% per annum? You can't survive. That's the practicality, that's the reality we need to bring home to our government and to people in government that look, the system is too crooked. The bankers, they know the pains of agribusiness people, but there is nothing they can do because they have to show high profit for their investing public.
And thank God the minister has reduced it now to 2%.
To 2%. But remember, this is an external fund. This money was borrowed from China.
Okay.
From
the Exim
China.
Bank, he
Yes.
stated it.
Yeah, so, but inwards, we need to begin to integrate policies that will be favorable to agribusiness people. See, from the rice sector in Nigeria, we have a lot of advantage, comparative advantage when it comes to rice farming. My grandfather happens to be a rice farmer.
Okay.
And was farming rice all the way back in River State. He had a very big land, you know, swampy area, farming rice.
Any trace of those features in you now?
Well, that is why I'm an agribusiness person
Okay, of course.
today. You know, but he stopped rice farming. Why? Because of the imported rice. When you import rice, local rice farmers cannot survive.
Yes.
Because the rate at which you're importing the rice is so low compared to what they can produce here. So they go out of business. So what the minister has just done is very, very accurate. We need to support him. We need to follow him to ensure that these drives, these moves he's making become actualized. And once they are done, Nigeria will be liberated, because we have to have a whole lot of savings from rice import. We'll save a whole lot. If we're producing the rice and processing it here in Nigeria, it means that we would employ several youths. Which means that this issue of Boko Haram and other youth resistance will be history.
Lots of issues. That's so true. Thank you so much, Mr. Anga. The truth is, we cannot touch on all the issues, very, very importantly, but that's why you're there for us. You can send your reactions, your comments, your contributions also to agenda@lovealplusnews.net. That's how you get to participate directly. We want to go into another one. We're not done yet. We want to go into another one. It is the cassava. I want to go into cassava and see what the minister also has in store for the Nigerian economy, talking about our agricultural base. So stay right there with your writing materials and grasp as much as you can. We'll be right back.
From the processors, this is what happened, you see. It was really bad. That many of them actually folded up. 153 of them folded up. And these are people that have invested in investments, retirement money, everything like that. Hopes were shattered. A country was deflated. And this, I said, has to change. I went around and I saw many of these things. In fact, after coming back, those that work for me knew that for days I was so mad, because I asked myself, how can this continue? This cannot continue. Because the farmers of America are so happy. My farmers are sad. And that's why we're changing this policy this time. Now, here's what we've done in terms of targets and achievements on our targets. When we came in, we had a very limited existing capacity, and we've been able to upgrade some of the capacity here. And there are 153 SMEs that we are upgrading. They are flash dryers and so on. This already is what you all remember. Mr. President holding this bread in council. I remember after I got home after this event, I started getting calls and stuff. Is that what people do in council? Is to eat bread.
Cassava bread.
Cassava bread. And Mr. President in council that day directed me that we must commercialize this because it's great bread. This was 40%, by the way. 40%. This bread, this is great bread. And so that you know we brought enough so that you all can have one to take home. This bread is made by Ms. Olanio here, UGC. They stepped up to the plate and they actually ran trials, 92 trials, didn't they? Before they came up with a recipe to get this done. This is the bread I eat every day. This bread, the president eats it every day. She did not keep the recipe to herself. In the private sector, you keep things so that you can have your own protection over intellectual property. She didn't. She put it up in the public domain for all the other corporate bakers and master bakers. Please help me appreciate that. So I was saying that we were having this dinner with the president of Malawi, and the president of Malawi, I asked the president of Malawi, Madam President, how do you like the bread you are eating? And she looked startled because I was asking her about a basic thing, bread. What is this minister asking me about how do I like bread? I said, I'm sure Mr. President would like you to know that that is the UTC bread that was commercialized the day before. She stopped eating. She said, no, you can't make bread out of cassava. And Mr. President said, that's why you are eating it. And she immediately asked for the bread. They took the bread and they took it into our car, to our limousine, and they flew it to Malawi. 1 week after, we got a letter. She wants Nigeria to help Malawi to do what we are doing in Nigeria so that they can reduce their dependence also with imports. Every African country is spending a lot of money on wheat imports. And I can tell you that so far, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Tanzania, Cameroon, and then Malawi, all of them, I have been contacted at the ministerial level, saying that what Nigeria is doing is the best thing. We are taking some of what we have, adding value to it, reducing our dependency on imports, and creating jobs. In fact, we are turning what was essentially a non-tradable commodity into a tradable commodity.
You're welcome back. That was another segment of that discussion. Very interesting one, I must tell you. That's the Minister of Agriculture there, Dr. Adewumi Adesina. He actually looked at cassava, which is a very interesting part of our economy. I know cassava is our strong point in agriculture, but we've not been able to harness it so well. You know. So what do you have to say about that?
Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the world.
Okay, producer.
Largest producer of cassava in the world. We produce over 32 million metric tons of cassava. We have not really exploited the wealth in our cassava resource. And it's so painful. And you see, the minister, what he's bringing out today is, we're talking about, with passion. He's talking with passion because he knows what he's saying. To address the problem of unemployment, to address the issue of job creation, you need to visit what you have. Areas wherein you have comparative advantage. And cassava is one area. One of them, yes. Okay? He's bringing us to something. Say, look, Nigerians consume a whole lot of bread. And bread is made out of wheat.
Okay.
All the wheat we use in producing our bread are all imported. Okay? We import about $635 million worth of wheat annually. How can a country survive with this kind of huge import? So the minister is saying, come back home. Let us introduce this same cassava flour into the composition of bread. Okay? Use some cassava flour, mix it, blend it with wheat flour, and then produce your bread.
And thanks to UTC, after 92 trials,
92
she got
trials.
the recipe for.
You see, nothing comes easy. Every country in the world today that has ever developed spent a whole lot of money, time, and resource into research and development to get better results. Now, this UTC, the lady you saw, the MD of UTC, they went through 92 trials before they came out with a recipe, an appropriate recipe. The cassava bread, my sons, when I took it home, my sons were scrambling for
How come it's not readily available?
Okay.
It's like it's only in the Senate and some other places that we get to see
Yes, because of, you see, Nigerians, we have a way of talking down at our technologies and innovations. And I think that needs to stop. When we do anything good, there is need to applaud ourselves and then use what we have done. You see, a whole lot of people tell you, cassava bread, you can't eat it, it's poisonous. They tell you a whole lot of things to scare you. And I would not blame them. Okay, the wheat importers, they don't want to go out of business.
No, business,
so
of
they will
course.
always tell you cassava bread is dangerous,
Yes.
so that you don't eat it.
Yes.
But we need to adjust our taste bud. If we allow this policy of cassava flour inclusion into our bread composition, bread making, we're going to save a whole lot of foreign exchange, a whole lot of money. We're going to create a whole lot of jobs. Because see, we produce over 32 million tons of cassava. A whole lot of this cassava that is produced is wasted.
It's wasted, yes.
They are wasted. So this is huge loss of revenue for our cassava farmers. Okay?
Yes.
The cassava farmers in Nigeria are one of the poorest because they don't have the right value for their
money
produce.
and their produce.
Okay?
All right.
So we need to change that.
Thank you so much. We're not done yet. We have another part of the keynote address by the Minister of Agriculture. He's still in cassava. I just had to pause it, to get some reactions, especially about the bread. But let's see what he has to say to conclude in that aspect on cassava. So stay tuned. We'll be back.
We created a new fund, a cassava bread development fund, which we fund the corporate bakers, which we fund these technologies, it will fund the standardization of the product and the training. So in other words, we're taking things to scale. So I wanted to know that when you hear me talk about the cassava bread, it's not the bread. We are changing the structure of an industry. The enzyme for this to rise, which is the cassava enhancer, is not produced in Nigeria, it's produced in South Africa. We are setting up now an arrangement for the private sector in South Africa to join with private sector in Nigeria to begin to manufacture those enzymes, cassava enhancers. We are creating new jobs and creating new industries. So it's all about the economy. That's why I want to say it's all back to the economy. Now, the issue is cassava chips. I want to inform you that we are doing more cassava chips. We started exporting. Some of the banks here are financing that. 1.1 million metric tons of cassava chips, dry cassava chips to China. It's the first time in Nigeria's history that we're doing that. And it's going to earn our farmers and processors $136 million US. The master bakers are the most crucial for getting the bread to scale. We have 435,000 of them. What they need are as follows. They need to have different equipment. They need mixers, chillers, rotary ovens. They also need enzymes because cassava flour doesn't have gluten, so it doesn't really rise. You need enzymes, right, to do that. And at the same time, we have to make sure that the recipe that Ms. Olaniyan from UTC has developed is standardized and made available, and that there is a premix. In other words, these guys don't have to depend on mixing the flour. They can get it supply of a premix for them. So those are the things that needed to be done on the value chain, and we have done that. Yesterday was a great day for bread, cassava bread in this country. Mr. President gave us directive to announce new incentives, and we did yesterday. Next slide. No, actually stay with that slide, yeah. And those incentives are to cover the master bakers to do all the things that I have said. Why is this issue so crucial? One, that bread is 60% of cost of wheat bread. 60%. Huh? It's cheaper bread. It is healthier bread. Just take a look at me. People say that bread, some people started all kind of misinformation. It creates, aggravates diabetes and so on and so forth. No. I'm a scientist, I should know. In fact, it's the best bread for you because wheat flour bread, that's 100% wheat flour, white flour bread, there's something we call glycemic index. The glycemic index of that white flour is 71. The one for cassava is 57. And the lower it is, the better, the higher it is, the worse, as far as aggravating diabetes is concerned. And so when you take a cassava flour that has lower glycemic index and you mix it with white wheat flour that has higher glycemic index, what do you get? One that's lower, which is better for you. Please give one up for the cassava bread. So it's healthier bread, it's great bread, it builds our economy.
I'm actually putting my hands together also for the cassava bread. 57% of glycemic index as compared to wheat, which is 71%. That is brilliant. We're supposed to tap into it. So that means our challenge right now is orientation. We need to get our orientation back to the grassroots. Everyone needs to understand that this is better. It's not another drain in the pipe, drain pipe rather on the economy. So, and I'm talking about cassava bread. A lot of people now need to understand that it's safer to actually dwell on cassava bread, right?
Absolutely. See, it is the best alternative. We have cassava produced in Nigeria. If the Nigerian populace, if we decide to eat what we have, it means that the value, the cost for cassava is going to appreciate. More farmers will go into cassava production.
And then exports too.
Yes, there will be more opportunities for exports because there will be too much that will be produced to cater for the local demand. And then, of course, the extra, you export it. Okay, but meanwhile, by going this backward integration, utilizing cassava flour, will create a whole lot of jobs. It will rebuild our economy. It will prosper the nation, Nigeria. It will do us a whole lot of good. So it is in our best interest to begin to consume it. See, one of the biggest opportunity we need to understand that Nigeria has is a large consuming public, 150 million people. When we take a decision that this is what we have decided to begin to consume, we stand by that decision. We will create the wealth for our people.
Just like China is doing right now.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anga. I can't believe we've already come a full cycle. It was an interesting one. I'll also have to talk to my producer to do this again, next week when we come back. We've looked at fertilizer, we've looked at rice, we've looked at cassava, and we've been talking about expanding our Nigeria agricultural base as to our Nigerian economy. How do we improve our Nigerian economy? I've been talking to my distinguished guest. I also call him the co-host of the program. His name is Mr. Sotonye Anga. He's the MD CEO, Darcom Agricultural Investment, or Darcom International Limited, and he's also the National Public Relation Officer, talking about the National Cashew Association of Nigeria. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philip.
It's been a good one. We hope to have him next time because he's always busy in the farm, doing a lot in the Nigerian economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
we'll
sir.
be back same time next week with another interesting dimension and this topic and this issue, talking about the agenda. You can send your contributions, your comments, and your reactions, what have you, to our email, agenda@lovealplusnews.net. My name is Philip Ihaza. It's been an interesting one. Until we come back same time next week, keep redefining patriotism and setting the agenda right. Thanks for being with us. Bye-bye.
So it's not the constitution that is a problem per se, but those that are supposed to interpret it and then administer it.
See, what we're saying is that people should be passionate about their job. We should have people that love this country.
People say, you know what, we don't want deregulation of petroleum products. We want the subsidy to continue. We want our refineries to be prepared. But you go talk to somebody who runs or works in one of these refineries, they will tell you why those refineries can never work.
There is a present and real danger for the corporate existence of Nigeria. Generally, this government is considered as weak.
It should not be so. If we remain like that, then we will remain in socio-economic and political thraldom.
So when you talk about passion, the people ruling us, they are not passionate.
Well, let's take
The House of Rep is not passionate. The senators are not passionate. That's why they are discussing without doing anything. Which sacrifice are they going to offer?
In Nigeria, governance is not about servanthood. Governance in Nigeria is about what can I get.